Okay, now I'd like to welcome you to our topic tonight, which is all about branding your small business. So we've got our panellists Natasha Cooperman from Red Creative, Bridget Engler-Newberry from Incognito Sum, and Linda Slavinsky from LSLC. So a big round of applause to our panellists. So tonight we're going to be discussing the topic of branding. Why do we need to brand for our small business? But we're also going to look at the graphic design aspect of it, as well as the intellectual aspect of it in terms of trademarks, copyrights. So we're going to make sure that we cover all of these things. And as you can see, our little disclaimer for the legal part of tonight. So we'll get started with Bridget. Tell us a bit about you, what you do, and what kind of companies have you worked with?
I am a brand specialist and my forte is naming things.
Yep.
Some of the things that I've been involved with creating are Zinifex, Australian Super, Fincia. I worked on Wentworth Real Estate last year and that will do for now.
Do you help couples name their children too by any chance?
I've had briefs.
You've had briefs?
I've had briefs.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Got to ask. Natasha, tell us a bit about you, who you've worked with, what you do.
Yeah, I run a small graphic design agency. We're called Red Creative. We specialise in creating visual identities mainly for small businesses. So a lot of our clients, actually you won't know of. We do a lot of work for promotional material for some of the larger people. From Sweeney Research, we've worked with Fonterra Brands on their Anline material. We've done everything from direct mail to online campaigns. We do a newsletter quarterly for Carmen's Muesli at the moment that go out to her customers. So we do a range of material to enhance people's brands.
Fantastic. Linda, tell us a bit about you.
G'day, I'm Linda Slavinskas. I run a sole practice in Ashburton, specialising in legal solutions for SMEs in their growth phases. So I do a lot of export work, I do a lot of franchise work for franchisors, a lot of marketing related stuff, which what brings me here today.
Yep.
I was a former in-house solicitor at Suzanne Corporation and Tattersalls, but I'm bringing big business experience to little business now, and making those little big businesses become big businesses. So, yeah.
Fantastic. We'll pass it back to you, Bridget. Tell us, what is a brand and why should small business even be looking at branding themselves?
I'll take that in two parts. I'm going to deal with the second part first.
You sound like John Howard and Kevin Rudd this week.
My Facebook page currently says that I'm very over election advertising,
Okay.
so that's probably why it's just
enough.
gone in. Anyone who said advertising doesn't work probably got it wrong. I'll take the second part first because every business needs a brand because it's what differentiates you in the marketplace. And the reason I took that first is because that's what you need it for. But what you actually need is not just a name or a logo. A brand is not just the visual or designed elements that you use. It's actually every part of the experience that you offer a customer. Some people say that a brand is simply a message or a response. Some people say that it only ever exists in hearts and minds. But it's actually down to a mix of intangible and tangible things. So your name, your visual identity, how you portray yourself in print, the photographs that you use, but also other things like the colour of uniforms, the way you answer the phone. Really good example of this is Qantas versus Virgin. They've got very, very distinct and very, very beautiful brands with their own unique features. But if you... has anyone in here flown both Virgin and Qantas, for example? Okay. So if I say to you, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying Qantas, a special welcome to our One World and frequent flyer customers, that's what Qantas is all about. If I said to you, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for flying Virgin, hopefully we'll make it to Sydney today.
You'll know which one it is.
Exactly. So that's brand expression, that's tone and voice, it's the manner in which it expresses itself, and that is as much a part of your brand as everything else that you do.
So in terms of that, is it about the emotional connection an individual has with the owner and the company?
When it's a small business, you're probably playing a little bit between the tension of your own personal brand, which you're delivering every time you interact with a customer, and also the actual business brand, the corporate brand. It depends very much on how you're set up, whether you're operating as a sole trader, perhaps trading under your own name, or whether you're building a bigger business brand. You might be operating as a sole trader, but building a series of product or service brands that are individually branded. So you have to make some really clear decisions about which brand you want to build, which brands are going to build off one another. And again, I'll give you a big business example, because all big businesses started small once. It's what Linda said. You know, she's helping smaller businesses become big, and every big business started out this big at some point in their lives, even if they're acquiring a medium-sized business. But you can learn from the businesses that invest so much in their brand, but also invest in their people. So KPMG, a lot of big law firms and consultancies, where you have a relationship with the person, but you also have a relationship with the brand.
So how, in terms of branding ourselves, where does it start? Do we start with the business name? Where do we start?
Start with a strategy.
Okay.
Your brand should map your business strategy and make it visible, because that's all a brand is. I can take away all of the other aspects of what a brand is about, but a brand is what takes your business and your strategy and your service and product and every other element of your offering to the marketplace. So if you don't have a strategy, you may as well call it anything and picture it as anything and market it as anything. So your brand can represent your business in terms of a bigger corporate brand with a number of services underneath it, or you can choose to just run as a consultancy.
Now, we're talking about branding the business. Will you brand the individual as well?
Personal branding, which is what you're more referring to. Definitely think about how you are as part of your business. I wear glasses. I make them a feature because I'm not very good with hair and makeup. So I may as well wear different glasses. I've got 5 different parts. They're part of my personal brand. I'm not terribly corporate, you know, in terms of the way I dress, but I can actually pull out a suit when I have to. So that's part of my personal brand. That's who I am, and it reflects very much part of my business as well, because I am at the slightly esoteric scheme of things. But if it's a question of personal brand, there are people out there who specialise in this, and I would recommend you see someone who does.
Now, how do we go about branding a product or a service?
There was that S-word strategy. Decide what it is that you're offering to the marketplace and brand it appropriately. So you can brand products, you can brand services, consider how it's named, how it's articulated both at a visual and a verbal level. The biggest thing I would reinforce though, and I have to get a book at this point, no matter what you're doing, this is one of the things you need to understand: positioning. Your marketplace positioning is really the space that you occupy both in the market and also in the minds of your customers. So I can reel off a series of products, for example. I need something to cover my food that's in a bowl before I put it in a fridge. Yeah. So you've just referred to the brand name. So it kind of owns that space. No one talks about plastic wrap or cling film or all of those things. So it's very well positioned, it's very clearly communicated. That's one of the principles you have to think about is, you know, where are you going to sit in the market? Who is your target market? Why are you targeting them? Where do they live? How do they behave? And brand your products and services accordingly.
So with the business name, how do you go about selecting a business name?
That's that S word again.
The S word, strategy, okay.
Strategy.
Because I know some people go for rhyming words.
Yep. It's all down to what the brand is about.
Yep.
So start by defining what your business is, the type of positioning it's going to occupy. Think of it as a person. What kind of personality does it have? Is it a boy or a girl? What car does it drive? Where does it live? What does it eat for breakfast? Because if
that's kind of creepy.
But if you think about it as a person, then you're actually able to give it life and really breathe something apart from just some mechanical effort into it. Things like breakfast are really important, because if someone tells me that, we're really health oriented, and I ask them what the brand eats for breakfast, and they say, I don't really eat breakfast. Then I get a little alarmed, because that's not perhaps the healthy approach.
Yep, fair enough.
So the other thing is to do a little bit of an audit of the competitive space. So see what your competitors are doing, and don't do whatever they're doing.
Yep. Because, I mean, we have a lot of startup businesses that will look at their competitors and try and mirror everything that they do.
Me Too branding is never the way to go.
Yep.
If you're looking at a C, and I'll give you a bigger brand example, Wentworth Real Estate. It was a very unique, well, there is no such thing as very unique. You're unique or you're not. It was a unique model in the sense that they were running as smaller businesses or franchise operations through WA and gradually buying up other franchise operations around Australia. So essentially you were dealing with a series of small businesses. When we looked at the marketplace, we found out that real estate was very blue or very red and blue or red, white and blue, and it was all about blokes in suits.
Yep.
And so Wentworth had a very different business objective, very different expression of the brand, so it's pink and aqua. And we love it.
Completely the other way.
Completely the other way. Hodges, which I'm not involved with, but it's a great brand because it's orange, it stands out. Run Property, even though it's red, a lot of other brands out there that are red, they've got very, very distinctive styling, big, bold, white type. It's about stand out and cut through. If you're not confident, if you're not a bit brash, if you're not chasing something that's different, then you'll just get lost.
Yep.
You'll get lost in a sea of similar colours and similar names and similar graphic devices.
Because branding's all about standing out. We market to stand out. But not a lot of business owners, we market like everybody else, so we never stand out.
Yeah. And when I say, don't do what everyone else is doing, obviously if you are selling a particular service to a particular audience, well, you have to go with your service to that particular audience. It's going fishing. You go where the fish are. And you just have to package it differently. It's how you act. It's your attitude. It's the way you express it. It's a whole lot of other things that come into play. And service. Brands make a promise. Make sure that your brand delivers on its promise.
Yep. Now, in terms of... yeah, we've got more for you. In terms of small business looking like big business, do we need a huge budget to be able to achieve it?
Not always, no.
Yeah.
It's what you do with what you've got. And I'm sure Natasha will speak a little bit more about this than I will, but think about colour, for example. Vodafone's one of the best recognised brands around the world. How many colours does it use? One. It's red. No, really, really... Virgin's pretty much the same. They've integrated other colours, they've got other elements to their brand, obviously, but you don't have to have bucket loads of money. And a brand like McDonald's didn't start with bucket loads of money. They just had consistency and a little bit of risk, good risk, and the confidence to go out there and do something. And they built it consistently and confidently over time.
Yep, fantastic. Natasha, I'm going to pass it to you. Tell us...
You're quite relieved now, aren't you? Yeah, that's okay.
You can take a breath. Tell us a bit about colouring. How do we go about choosing a colour to match our business or industry?
Okay, well, there's a few things about colour. I mean, there's obviously a lot of people identify with colour. McDonald's is a good example. There's a lot of red in fast food that's supposed to generate hunger, urgency, get it now, get it fast. But when you look at colour, and if you are a small business and talking about personal branding, a lot of the people that we deal with have a colour that they already identify with. It might be a scarf that they wear or a tie that they wear. It might be something that uniquely identifies them. And we have people who come in and say, I want this colour aqua or I want this colour green. Now, often that's okay. We can work around that. I would say evaluate the competition, choose a colour nobody else is using. If everybody, especially in business services, is using blue, and there's a lot of blue and a lot of grey, especially if you're marketing to males, then often we'll sort of say, well, that's great. Let's look at that as part of your colour palette, but let's look at a different highlight colour. Another thing with colour is that I suggest that you don't go crazy and say, I want 5 colours and I want this colour and that colour. Go with a dominant colour that's a highlight that identifies you. Vodafone's a really good example. But then if you're looking at branding things such as services or products, you can actually identify them by colour or by other but basically define them by different colours or different colour palettes or just using the one brand colour, because people you only get a couple of seconds of their time and attention, and they're going to identify by colour first before they actually read anything of your brand.
Now, different colours mean different things. Should we be using particular colours for different industries?
There's no hard and fast rules. There's better colours than others. If you're doing barbecues, unless you're sort of going for the female market, I probably wouldn't go fuchsia pink, for example. There's different colours that are very popular in certain industries. There are a lot of safe colours to use, so if you want to go down that unremarkable route, you can definitely do that and blend into everyone.
Everyone's got that as an objective. Unremarkable, yeah.
Well, this is it. And this is why we say choose a highlight colour, choose something that is a little bit different, or use it in a different way. So it's not only by colour. We mentioned Run, which is the leasing for Run property. Their font is very different than anybody else's. There is a definite tone that we can give with colour and a combination of font. There's a lot of casual fonts that seem very, if someone wants to be approachable, there are a lot of standard old-fashioned and traditional fonts that sort of breathe trustworthy and credible into a brand, where perhaps the actual wording or the naming, if not done correctly, doesn't automatically portray that. So there are a few elements that make up an identity.
So where do you start in terms of doing the graphic design to make sure that the branding's kind of set up from day one? Where do you even start?
If I was to do it for someone, or giving advice to people who want to do it themselves?
If you were to do it for someone.
Right, okay.
And then we'll talk about the other one.
I might just preface that by saying we do a lot of rebrand work. We understand that it is an investment for a lot of people who are starting out to put money into brand development work. We deal in different stages. Someone might have a very clear idea of something that they would like. They've done it in a sketch form, or they've done it in PowerPoint and brought it to the first meeting and said, we really want to run with this. Can you do the artwork for it? Can you set it up so we can give it to a printer, or we can use it for signage? Often we'll give them some advice on perhaps toning down or changing colours, or just ensuring that what is actually produced will work well online, in signage, on uniforms, in print, because that's what it's all about. Will it work in small scale? Will it work if you fax it through to someone? Will it work on the side of a building? So there are a lot of considerations about the material that your brand will be applied to. Some people put it on their tools, some people embroider it into promotional material. So knowing what it's going to be applied to is the first thing that we would look at. We would look at also what the landscape is in your direct competitors, to ensure that we're not doing anything that's treading on anybody's toes in terms of legal. But Linda can talk a little bit more about that, because that's a bit of a sticky area. But also looking at just really differentiating yourself, and perhaps looking at a different market that someone else has done something remarkable in, and something that stood out, and perhaps applying it to their market, and whether or not we could take some elements that someone else has done and some of those attributes across to their industry.
And now let's talk about business owners doing it themselves. Mm-hmm. Good or bad idea?
It's not always a good idea, only because I have someone do my accounting, because I'm not a very good accountant. I have someone else do, you look at specialists for specialist skills, and I'm one of those people who does run her own business, who likes to delegate as soon as I can. That being said, there are different degrees of work that you can bring to a designer, but if you are going to do it yourself, ensure that you do set it up and set some consistency. So if you are going to use a particular brand or a particular piece of artwork, use it across all of your material. Try and keep your colour values the same. If you're using, say, if you've got a website and you're doing letters and proposals, ensure that you use the same font across all of that, so that when people see it, they start to identify your style as a group of elements and not just your logo by itself.
Yep. Now, in terms of, I guess, if we were to take something to a graphic designer, should we, say, take Bridget's suggestion and talk about the attitude, how we want to represent the business? What do we need to take to you?
Yeah, if we get a brief like that, that's a big tick for us, because that's the kind of information that we then need to then take it to the next level. If someone has a particular idea about a brand, what we would do is work up that idea, but then we would give them something that meets the brief that perhaps is completely different. So it does look approachable, it does look friendly, it does have a particular colour value. But if they said they want circles, we'll try and do it with squares. So we'll show them something. They often do choose something that we've prepared, because they still identify with it, but it's just a little bit further, and it just gives them a different perspective on things when you're so focused on something. That being said, a lot of people see what we've done and decide to go with their initial idea. It just depends on how steadfast you are, and sometimes some of the ideas that we get given to us are really good. So we only try to polish and refine.
I wish I could have done that.
Well, look, there are a few where I just say, and people come to us often and ask, should I be rebranding? You know, is this good enough? I want to grow the business. It's time to put on staff. Should I be completely redoing this? And often we will say, well, no, you can tweak a little bit here and tweak a little bit there, but that's a really strong brand. People identify with it. Don't change things just for the sake of changing things. It's not often a good idea.
Yep. And Bridget, what's your view on changing things and rebranding things?
You've got to have a really, really good reason to change things and rebrand, particularly if it's foundation elements like the name. The name is going to be used about 3 times more often as you are seen or recognised. It's the thing that hangs around for a lot longer. You can change your tagline every 12 months if you have to. You can have a positioning statement that evolves as the business does.
Yep.
But your name is steadfast. A couple of examples, Nike. You know, that name hasn't changed. The essential graphic hasn't changed, and that started out as a small business. McDonald's was the same. McDonald's looks the same around the world, except at a couple of drive-thrus in France where they've had to adhere to council bylaws, but they've done what they can because there was a business imperative. The other example I'd use is Shell.
Yep.
That Shell has gone up, down, sideways, two-dimensional, white, yellow, red, reversed out of something else. Some of that I made up. But it's changed. But Shell has endured. And sometimes when I get faced with particularly large organisations and they say we're thinking of rebranding and changing our name, I just kind of, you better have a really good business reason for doing that, because you've got so much equity invested in it. With a visual identity, you can often evolve it. The Triple J drum has evolved 3 or 4 times in its lifespan.
But it's still the same element.
It's still essentially there. One of the best rebrands would have to be BP.
Okay.
It's just gorgeous. That sunflower or whatever they're using now has really